ago?
Oh man, a lot of things, a lot of things. More cosmopolitan
Much
today
more cosmopolitan
than
here in
2013.
Kampala.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you walked away from Kampala and gone to outside Kampala?
I have. I've been around.
You've been around.
Soroti, Lira, Moroto. I have to say things haven't changed that much.
That way. Okay,
Yeah.
I was hoping to hear things around the social life because we are very social people. So most social,
You can say that
our
again.
social parks go ahead of us, but looks
Yeah.
like we focus on the entrepreneurship side.
Yes.
And the economics and the macroeconomics. So let's
Yes.
focus on that.
Sure.
And you talked about coming here 13 years ago, seeing how things have changed, but we would like to appreciate your own journey as the senior entrepreneur that you are. And you are now CEO, Group
Yes.
CEO for Avoda.
Yes.
That is a global brand. Would you like to tell us more about Avoda?
Sure.
And then maybe the journey to CEO-ship, because I don't believe you were CEO 8 years ago when you came to Kampala.
No,
So-
I was very green back then.
Okay, please tell us about that.
Sure. So Avoda is an entrepreneurial training institute that also has two other functions. So we train entrepreneurs, and then we invest into entrepreneurs. We have a fund in the U.S. called the Avoda Fund, based in South Carolina. So that fund then obviously supports Avoda itself, but invests also into Avoda's graduate alumni businesses. And then we also have a consulting arm, and the consulting arm is a company that helps foreign governments and foreign firms, foreign funds to run their projects, plan and run their projects here in East Africa, particularly in the area of entrepreneurship. So there are lots of programs out there, and they need people to run it. So there are three pillars. There's the Entrepreneurship Institute, there is the fund, like the investment side, and then there is the consultancy. But today I'm here, of course, primarily to talk about the first one, Avoda. When we talk about Avoda, I think most people in Uganda will know us as the Training Institute. So we have a one-year program here. That is our flagship, most important program. It's 1 year, 6 months of it is in the classroom. The classroom is in Kamocha, very near Acacia. So please come visit us sometimes. Just go to Google Maps and put Avoda Institute of Entrepreneurship. And so in those classrooms for 6 months, they go through MBA level business concepts and theory. But the next 6 months after that, what they do is we walk alongside them as they go out and sell their product and actually start their businesses and scale their businesses.
Today we are going to take a very different discussion. For those of us who are joining us right now, this is Fat Talks, that comes to you every Thursday from the Fidelis Leadership Institute. We are honored to have June here. June is a group CEO for Avoda, which is a national group. He's given us a brief insight on what Avoda is. But because we are having conversations that matter, I'm going to keep dragging him back to his personal journey to entrepreneurship, because the first question for me comes, you are a group CEO for Avoda, a company that has its roots in the US, and we are talking about entrepreneurship. For myself, like I said, in all honesty and transparency, I'm a very young entrepreneur. I call myself an infant in the speak on my behalf and on behalf of all the group CEOs there who want to do a gig, who want to start a side gig. We are going to focus on the entrepreneur, the person, and then the skills, and then we'll eventually see how I can come in to help, if that's agreeable with you.
That's good. So Deutsche Bank Group. In between, I went to the University of Cambridge for my master's, which was the very first classroom I walked into in my life.
Do you want to disclose at what age that was?
That was 29.
Okay.
29 years old.
All right.
Apparently, I was the very first homeschooler
Postgrad.
to make it into Cambridge's
Did you have to
MBA
do some
program.
exams or?
Oh yeah,
of course.
Lots and lots of exams.
And you passed.
I passed.
Oh.
Yeah, thankfully I passed. But I have to say, initially I didn't think I'd make it, because all of these master's programs require you to have an undergraduate degree. But my mom taught me well. And that kind of
good for mothers.
Oh, yes, and Mother's Day was just a few weeks ago, so thank you, Mom, for bringing me up. Thank you, Dad, for bringing me up. But I think it's very important for entrepreneurs that they are not necessarily schooled the way everybody else is schooled, because being an entrepreneur is, by definition, doing something different, right? And the education system that is still, I think, in Uganda, copy and paste from, let's say, the West, the UK or the US, it's designed to make employees, good employees, of course, but employees. If that is the system you go through, then it takes a huge shift to become an entrepreneur, to think differently from everybody else. But I was blessed. I was not schooled like everybody else. And I think from a very young age I was brought up to be an entrepreneur. So I still remember my first part-time job. Okay, I was 14. I went to a Japanese publishing house, bilingual publishing house. 14 years old. And I went for an interview, so scared, it was my first interview. And the person failed me. He says, no, you're not qualified.
On age basis, or you really didn't have the content, the substance?
It was my first interview. I think I was just super nervous, and I just didn't make it. 14 years old, you're still pretty small. And but that's where the homeschooling, or let's entrepreneurial bit, kicked in. So he had a phone call, he left the room, and during that time I saw a lot of their publications on the wall. And so I picked one of them up and looked through it, found a few English mistakes. And when he came back and said, okay, thank you very much, I said,
this needs to be corrected.
This needs to be corrected. That's the kind of thing that...
So the homeschool gave you the knowledge, but also the confidence, the skill to not shy away, like seize the opportunity, so to speak.
Yeah, the initiative, I would say.
Take the initiative.
Taking initiative of the situation, whatever it is.
Right on the heart of the cause, let us get it out of the way. Are you saying, therefore, that even because we are at as a generation where we are either or, to go to school or not to go to school, so much so that even our very own government, after long consideration, are starting to push the education system more towards the thematic, the new curriculum. Yes, there is STEM, but there is also vocational,
right? Where
people from the onset are being programmed and taught to work towards self-skilling, as opposed to what we did many years ago. I don't know if you're aware of that. So can we get, for our listeners who are on the fence, to be educated or not, to take a chance and go down to the garage and ask your mom for an old computer and be a founder of some app, or to go and do all the PhDs and hope that you'll discover a vaccine? What is the role of education? Yes.
That's great. That's a great question, and I don't want to be responsible for anybody's life choices here. But I would have to say, though, that getting a good education is very important. Okay, it's very important, especially after you have started a company. Let's say 3-5 years in.
Or after.
Yes, but the starting bit. That part is probably an area that the education system isn't even designed for. It's not the job of an educator to help someone become a good starter.
Say that again, please, for the people at the back.
So it's not
maybe
the
it's not
job.
even interest. Job or interest?
It's not the job of an educational institute to make someone a good entrepreneur. Okay, it's not. The schooling system is never going to be designed for that. You can change it to make it as close as possible, but it's not designed to make you a good entrepreneur. Why? Because it's designed to be theoretical, right? And yes, you could say there are these vocational schools that help you with the craftsmanship or the knowledge, but knowledge is also head stuff. Theory is also head stuff. Entrepreneurship, the first 3 years, is not so much about the head stuff, it is about grit.
Grit.
It's about grit. It's about habit. It's about personality. And that kind of thing.
Habit and personality.
Oh,
June, you're taking us in all forms and shapes, because when you bring in personality, now we have to ask, is an entrepreneur born or made? Because if I don't have that personality in my DNA...
It's made, but it's not necessarily made in the school.
It's made but not made in the school.
That's what I think. That's what I think.
So when we do entrepreneurship training like Avoda does, we are not educating per se? We are
connecting them to markets, and we're connecting them to capital. And so, our system, by the way, is designed so that, we find the people who have it.
Have what? The entrepreneur,
have
the grit.
They have the grit,
So nobody teaches you grit?
That is something the entrepreneur needs to learn on his own or her own, right? When you're 14, go and sell something. You can't replicate that in the school. Do you see what I mean?
Right there. When you're 14, go and sell something.
Sell something.
What about when you're 40?
When you're 40.
And like I said, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, or just now, we have June in the house. He's the group CEO for Aboda. We are discussing entrepreneurial skills. I'm just besides myself because, like I said, I am the first row student. Today I'm here to learn from him. So please bear with me if I ask questions that I feel are more to my benefit. But I hope in the audience, online and in the viewership, will be late bloomers, late infants, entrepreneur sense, who will want to learn no matter the age. That's what I hope we can pick, because like we have just agreed, many of us can go back to and do the system, the school system you just talked about, that never harnessed the grit. But here we are, we find ourselves in a reality where you need to have a side gig. The millennials or Gen Zs call it a gig economy. We are calling it multiple streams of income and all the nomenclature, but it's all about having the grit to step out, because you said it's outside the school.
Right.
School taught philosophy or whatever,
theory. Teach knowledge, and that is important. That is absolutely important, especially I think in the latter part. Once you've started your business, that is extremely important. But a lot of Ugandan businesses, I realize, don't get there to year number 3, year number 4. That first bit is not something that a school can teach you. Okay, it is the ability to go out there and sell, and a lot of that is just being able to read people well, make good connections, and this is very important. I mentioned habit, but this might be a little bit of tangent. But for example, this is a big question. Okay. But let's talk about Uganda itself. Let's say it's an entrepreneur, right? It's got a lot of natural resources. But why can't it ever really become the person who transports the raw materials or the minerals, or refines them, or sells them in the large, markets?
Global market.
We always get it at the most expensive point, like in a ring or in the petrol. We sell. You see, I'm Uganda, I say we. We sell at the cheapest point, and we buy at the most expensive point. Why? Because the moment you go from the provider of raw materials, like in the mines, to someone who supplies, you need one word. And this is like habit. One word. You ready?
Yes, I am.
Consistency.
Consistency.
Consistency. Consistency of speed, consistency of quality, consistency of good communication, and consistency of stewardship, cost management, whatever you. Okay.
Thank you very much. We're getting down into the nitty-gritty, but before we go there, you talked about being able to sell.
Being able to sell.
Many of us will say, I am not a salesperson. It's not because you talked about grit. Now we're talking about the person, because you said it takes a personality, a discipline, and I forget the third one. If I am biased towards selling, and then we're living in an economy or a generation where it's all about creatives, at a click, at a mouse, the people who are listening us, 40% or a big percentage are all young people, where the only thing they hear is creative. Tap into your creative ability. Help us understand the value chain for an entrepreneur out there who just wants to create, but they don't want to sell.
Well, then you don't have a business. It's that simple. If you can't sell, you don't have a business. Where's the money going to come from? Right? So there are two things that I think we're discussing here. One is, if you can't sell and you can't make money, you don't have a business. It's pure and simple. The second one is, it's not only about the one sell either. That's where the habit comes in. You know, if you want a business, there's a difference between a product and business. You can sell a product. For business, it has to be the long-term ability to minimize cost and to keep selling to the same people and adding new people to sell. Then you have a business. Too often, I think the creatives, they have great skills, but because they don't want to sell,
passion.
they have great passion.
Fuel and passion, yes.
Yeah. But
the consistency.
they either don't like the selling bit, and so they don't sell, or they do sell, but the sales tend to be one-off sales. That means your entire entrepreneurial journey, you're trying to make that one-off
big
sale, right? A business is not about one sell. A business is about something that you can keep selling again and again and again, and hopefully in the future it becomes passive income, as in you don't even need to sell because you've sold so much, people come to you to buy. That's a business. So
thank you very much for differentiating clearly between a sale and a going concern, what we call a business.
A business.
Now that we are here to learn from first principles, other than being able to sell, what would you consider the other top, maybe 5 or 3 skills that an entrepreneur should have, no matter the age?
Ooh, top? Well, as a business person, I would say there is the opposite of selling, which is cost management. I don't know how many entrepreneurs have come to me and say, I'm selling, but at the end of the month, I don't know where the money went, right? And that is also going to spell death for your business, right? So either you can't sell or you have too much cost. It's actually, business is pretty simple in that sense. You make revenue and you reduce cost. And
so being able to sell, cost management,
yeah.
What else?
Cost management, if you don't mind me going off a little bit on that, is much harder than we think because it's habit. So for example, me, right? I have this spike right inside my door of my apartment. Everything I sold, everything I spent money on, down to like 5,000 shillings on a Boda, I would, put onto that spike. That's the first thing I come in when I come into the house. Before I even take off my shoes, I put all my receipts there. And then at the end of the month, I count them. I total them. And before I total them, I count to myself, I wonder how much I think I spent this month.
Okay.
Guess what? Every month, it's at least double. The real number is actually double.
It's double what you thought.
Yeah,
without,
always.
Like
every
if you
month.
don't write it down, you underestimate it.
And a lot of businesses, startups, die because they don't know that.
Basic principles.
It's basic habits
Basic
and principles.
habits.
Yes.
You talked about communication earlier on. Communicating to who, with who.
Oh, that's another very good question. That is, you're right on the dot there. I think that having been involved in entrepreneurship in Uganda for a while, Ugandan entrepreneurship is still very focused on the pitch to the investor or the pitch to the donor. And so the networking and communication is all about how do I convince someone to invest or donate to my business. And that is the wrong mindset.
Please help us correct that.
You need to be communicating to your customers.
Okay.
There are 2 places money comes from. It comes from the donors, but that should only be at the hopefully beginning of your
equity
of your business. The ongoing concern, as you call it, that is your customers. That's where the money, the cash flow should come from. And too often we see entrepreneurs that prefer to sit behind their computer, or even if they set up a shop, they prefer to be sitting at the shop and waiting for someone, perchance, by random, to come by to the shop and maybe find something randomly that they want to buy.
As opposed to
you going out, communicating, making networks with people constantly, right? So waiting is
Lack
waiting
of communication.
is lack of communication, and waiting kills your business. We, for example, at Avoda, we really prioritize going out there to meet our potential clients, go meet our potential donors, investors. We are the ones who keep initiating that communication. Now, communication is tricky because you don't want it to sound like you're being a pesky person who just keeps, jumping into someone's life, and that takes skill. So
Those are three. Any other two must-have skills that come to mind?
So revenue, cost reduction, communication, consistency. By the way, consistency of speed, quality, cost reduction, and communication. So it's actually those three. Revenue, cost management.
With their items.
Yeah. Those are the main things, absolutely main things.
Sounds like it's stuff everybody knows. I think I have heard that over and over again, from an exam room to my master's class where I've done projects. I'm an entrepreneur, I keep repeating it.
Yeah.
But I'm
learned
an
it in theory.
infant in theory.
You learned it in theory.
What can we do to bridge that gap between what we know in theory? I just confessed to you off camera, I have a business with my master's.
Yeah.
I still need someone to come in and do the bookkeeping, what you're talking about, the cost management and what. What can we do differently to make sure that the skills are imparted as soon as yesterday?
I am afraid I might be the bearer of not very good news, but it doesn't happen overnight. This is a skill, it's habit, so it's a skill that you have to deliberately and intentionally instill in yourself. And after 1 year, you become that person.
The one that comes home and checks in there before taking off their shoes.
Yes, I always check my costs. Whenever I'm talking to someone, I am ABC, always be closing. I am always selling, right? And also consistency. I'm never going to be that person who delivers one day, but next day it didn't deliver, right? So these kinds of things are, as you probably can understand, is a matter of habit. And habit is something that you need to instill in yourself over a period of time. It doesn't have to be all the time.
You don't
it could
have
be
to
a
read
month.
7 self-help books if you're not practicing what you preach, what you're reading.
No.
It's not.
Some people once told me that, Asian moms are some of the best business people. They don't have a business, but they manage the household finances so well.
All moms.
All moms.
Newsflash.
Okay.
Newsflash. All moms.
All moms.
Yeah.
Right? So those are the skills needed, but applied to your business. Yeah.
So thank you very much. Time goes very fast.
It does indeed, doesn't it?
We already halfway into the conversation. Those who are joining us, this is Fidelis Leadership Institute, coming to you every Thursday live on Smart 24, on our X Space, on our socials, and on YouTube, having conversations that matter. We are in the middle of the year. Some of us have forgotten our resolutions. We are into almost 4 years post-COVID, and that's the season when we all picked up businesses because we had time, we found passions, we found interest, then technology was just the only thing we had. So this conversation really matters for those of us who are reviving our COVID passions and businesses and gigs and whatever you want to name it. For those of us who are stepping out as late bloomers who realize that after you need multiple streams of income, those of us who are learning that entrepreneurship is the most exhausting but also most gratifying for whatever reason we are using to step out.
It has no ceiling.
So June is here to give us the 1, 2, 3. He's talked about the skill set, the kind of person an entrepreneur should be. He's given us Ugandan context challenges, if I must say, and solutions. June has taken us through what an ideal entrepreneur, irrespective of age, and I emphasize on the age factor because we're talking about the age in entrepreneurship, not your birth year, because it's never too late to start. Do you agree?
I totally agree.
He has told us a little bit of what they do in Avoda. They've talked about training and also investment. We will get to the Avoda bit, but we are now building the person that the entrepreneur should be before they even come to you.
Sure.
You've also made it known here that education is good enough, but the school system is not designed to bring out the entrepreneur side. So you have to have some extra push from an extra force that brings your school knowledge to the practical world. Is that correct?
That's correct. You
Anything
can't fly a plane by studying about it in the classroom, right?
Yeah. So let's try to move a little bit. Of course, you are here. You've only been here 8 years in and out. What does it look like on a global scale? Because you talked about the global nature of entrepreneur. If you're creating or selling an item here, someone is doing the same in Nigeria, in Rwanda, in Japan. What global or forward-looking entrepreneur, what should they have at the back of their mind? Given your global experience, you worked in Europe, America, Asia, of course, and now Africa.
I think one word has to be there, and that's global. It has to be global. Now, I think Uganda is doing very well entrepreneurially, to be honest. I think, some people don't believe it, but, you say it was, I think the GEM monitor in the UK said Uganda has the most entrepreneurs by ratio in the entire world. So in that sense, it is the most entrepreneurial country in the world. So in a sense, Uganda is doing really well, and that's why I'm here. Of all the countries I could choose, I came to Uganda.
Did you choose?
I did. I did indeed.
Tell the truth. Did you choose?
I did.
Oh,
I did. And I'll tell you exactly why. It's almost as if this leads right to the next topic. Why would someone overseas want to buy from a Ugandan entrepreneur as opposed to a Kenyan entrepreneur for the same product? It's because they know someone there. Okay. It's actually just that. And I had a very, very good chat with a JICA representative just a week ago about that. We have all these consulting projects for African entrepreneurship sponsored by the government of Japan. And someone asked him, said, so tell me, what is the strength in the Ugandan startup ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem? What are the strengths of the Ugandan ecosystem? And we need to find that out. And the JICA representative corrected him respectfully and said, no, it's not about the strengths, what strengths Ugandan entrepreneurs have. It's about who knows who. At the end of the day...
Is that unique to Uganda or world over?
All over the world.
So social capital, let's call it as...
Yeah, social capital is very broad, but let's bring it down to the ground for the everyday entrepreneur, right? You're selling whatever it may be, social media marketing services, right? And you want to sell it not just in Uganda, but you want to sell it to someone in Japan, a Japanese corporation, right? And they're going to pay you, hopefully, Japanese rates, right? And that would be your break, right? So how do you get them to choose Uganda and you, as opposed to Mr. XYZ in Kenya? Well, it's only if you have a connection with a Japanese person who then speaks highly of you to this corporation, and they're going to choose you. It doesn't matter, because Africa's 54 countries. People are not going to do a proper research of every single one of the 54 countries to come up with what is the strength of this one. They're going to go, oh, someone so-and-so knows someone here. Right? So it's that kind of communication that is going to help Ugandan entrepreneurs reach global audiences and get paid, hopefully, global rates.
That is on the services and
primarily
goods?
Services.
Primarily services.
Services still make up 52% of Uganda's GDP, by the way. Services is where the big bucks tend to come from. Unfortunately, Uganda's primary export in terms of volume is still agriculture.
It's still agricultural. So to the entrepreneur out there who's still on the fence and they are torn between harnessing their entrepreneur skill, or the alternative, I think, would be safe alternative with the challenges that we mentioned. They say, I hear what June is saying, I hear what Nansa is talking about, but at this age of mine, I can't go back to learn the basics that I missed, even though I have a PhD or a master's or none at all. I don't have. But I do have some savings, I do have a pension, I do have some donation or money I've inherited. Let me go buy stocks. It goes back to the entrepreneur personality. Is everybody meant to start something up and see it grow into a business?
Everybody can, if they're willing to, change themselves. And we talked about the personality and habits. If you're willing to do that, everybody can be an entrepreneur. But going back to your question, I think data speaks, right? And I've analyzed and met about 400 entrepreneurs in Uganda so far. 400 entrepreneurs. And something very interesting stood out, very counterintuitive, which is the most successful startups or entrepreneurs in Uganda tend to be people who already have day jobs.
Really?
Interesting, right?
What would we owe that to in your understanding of our ecosystem?
Cash flow. Cash flow.
Cash flow.
If you already have a day job and that is looking after your basic needs, then
you don't have to eat out of the business.
You don't have to eat out of the business. The business grows. I mean, this is just my theory. I don't know. I'm just giving you a data point that the most successful, long-living startups inUganda tend to be
other gigs.
Not the gigs, but side business.
Side business, okay.
Gig is, I'm not sure gig is the right way to it's not the ideal entrepreneur, or it's not the ideal startup, because gigs are very much one-offs, right? A gig is, by definition, a one-off. People who create ongoing cash flow and revenue on the side tend to have a day job as well. So I would advise people on the fence to say, please keep your day job, okay? And make that slow. I told you, is it going to be a transition of a year where you're trying to teach yourself how to sell? Make that transition from that employment, your job, being your day job, to your startup being your day job. Make it a slow transition. Don't go boom, boom.
That's interesting. The schools of thought that are out there, if you don't burn your bridges and you have a fallback position, you'll always go back to it.
And that is in the West. And that is very different between the West and I think Africa. And again, that's my...
What's different? Help us see the nuances. Let's split hairs on that.
I think the main difference is just the amount of time it takes, the length of time it takes in Uganda to have a new business break even. Is very different from countries with populations of high disposable income. If you have customers you have a large enough group of customers in your country who are willing to part with $100, $200 just to buy a shoe, well, shoes, a pair of shoes.
You're very Ugandanized, a shoe, that's so Ugandan.
Then the possibility of you in a brief period of time getting your business up is high, or is higher. But here, because you have low disposable income generally, it takes a lot of time. 3 years is a good benchmark. 3-4 years for you to be for your side business to make enough money to support you. And if you don't have a day job, I guess the explanation probably would be, if you don't have a day job, during that time you just die out, and you would rather have your startup die first than yourself die, and so the startup dies.
Naturally. Wow, so the dynamics are different because of disposable income.
Yes, very different.
the spending
But
power.
that is
of
also
your
why
target.
I'm saying if you are in a services industry, target countries outside of Uganda that have high disposable income. You don't have to just limit yourself to Uganda, especially if you're in services.
In the services.
Mhm.
So that the perks or the advantage of going into services, as we've seen, one, the demand is insatiable. Then you're talking about being able to step out of Uganda without necessarily going through the
Immigration.
yes, there's immigration, but also
Online. Go abroad online.
online.
Yeah.
That brings us to our next segment, because you are coming from a highly developed country compared to our underdeveloped or developing country. You're coming from a high-tech country to a upcoming tech country in terms of business. What do you see and also foresee as the skills and entrepreneurial trends in the coming 5-10 years that somebody who's far looking, currently operating in Uganda, should focus on because of the tech changes and all
in
that?
Uganda. So we're primarily talking about tech now. If we're talking about tech, then obviously the top three biggest earning tech startup categories in Uganda are fintech, e-commerce, and mobility. So like SafeBoda, Tugende, and so forth. And that's good, but those are primarily local.
Yeah, we are talking about the Ugandan context.
Yeah, well, they are local companies selling to local customers primarily. I think your question was
The trends where you see
I think
entrepreneurship
trends.
going, so that somebody who's forward-looking can start now to tap into a market that they think will be oversubscribed in about 10 years.
I actually think it is going to be business process outsourcing, what we call
Business
BPO.
process outsourcing.
Yeah, business process
Tell us more about
outsourcing.
business. I see where you're going. Like you don't have to own the service or the good, but you're somewhere in the middle of the value chain,
Yep.
and you're connecting.
Yeah. So an accountant, for example, in Japan makes a lot of money. You know, they're the most popular ones amongst the girls. You know, girls love to date and
make
marry.
money.
No, well, they do too, I'm sure,
make
but
money.
to date and marry an accountant, you know, they make a lot of money. What if, though, you could, in Uganda, take care of the payroll for a Japanese company, take care of the books of a Japanese company, and do it online? Right? That's business process of accounting outsourced. So business process outsourcing can be done for payroll, it can be done for accounting and bookkeeping, it can even be done for HR management. Okay. It can-
Low level, like customer care, call center.
Call centers are business process outsourcing areas as well. A lot of M&E, so monitoring and evaluation, is also can be done remotely. So remote work is definitely going to be a very big area.
So we have fintech, we have this transportation, we have you talk about business process outsourcing.
Yeah.
All those seem very good, but you just stated the facts, and we can't run away that we are still an agriculture-based economy, export biased on the agriculture side. And the businesses you just named, in all sincerity, require a degree of literacy or level of education. But we're saying entrepreneurship is for all. Come one, come all. So can we think of some that somebody who doesn't have a good education can harness their skills in?
I see. So these examples I gave, right? Fintech, e-commerce, and mobility.
And outsourcing?
Outsourcing is for global markets, if you're trying to access global markets. For local markets, these three are the biggest ones. E-commerce, mobility, and fintech. These are the local success stories, the biggest local success stories. If you want to go abroad and access
No, I
markets
really
abroad,
want to stay local, but
Okay.
putting in mind someone who's not
And I'm
even
glad you-
university educated, because we do have a lot of successful entrepreneurs with minimum education, mostly in the merchandise, fast consuming goods and the trade, international trade. So we would like to have a balanced for both who have the ability to do IT and use AI and use all this software, and somebody who's like, I'm not tech savvy, I'm not gonna do it that way.
Did you know that the founder of Safe Voda,
Is
Ricky
not-
Thompson, we were having dinner, and he calls himself illiterate.
So you know him on first name basis.
Yes, I do.
That's nice.
And he's never gone to college. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say, don't rule that out for people who
Well,
might think that they are
Not
uneducated.
educated.
It's not an impossibility. And I think this kind of brings me to another point, but I think that no startup is made by one person.
Okay.
Okay, so that's exactly what Ricky did. He knows that his strength was this idea and his passion for it and his human skills. He is fun to be around, right? And so then he can get someone, a partner, who can do the things that he can't do.
Very
Right?
good.
So you don't have to be,
All
in
round,
fact,
all
no
savvy.
entrepreneur ever has all the skills necessary to start a business. They might have the skills to sell a product, but not start a business. So you don't necessarily need to be that person. So no, you don't have to be everybody for your business. So once again, it comes down to, I mentioned personality, communication, and habit.
And habits.
If you have good habits, good personality, and good communication, get yourself a good partner. Right? That's a very.
Thank you very
important
much. I like that we have brought it down to every day without over underscoring the education, which you debunked at the start of this conversation.
Oh,
So it's
that's
kind
not
of
my
feels,
intention.
it feels like a full circle. We don't want to leave our listeners and viewers out there wondering, two or not two. So those of us who are those who have joined in this evening now, this is Fat Talks by the Fidelis Leadership Institute. They come to you every Thursday, live on Smart TV, on our X Spaces, and on YouTube, and on our socials. We have conversations that matter around any and every topic, and today we are debunking the many myths around entrepreneurship skills. We are trying to bring it down to the Ugandan context as much as possible. We have someone with an international roving eye, but has their feet here and can authoritatively tell us where we are doing well, where we're struggling, and what we can do to get better. So we really appreciate your non-superficial insight in dissecting this Uganda entrepreneur thing. And we want to talk about that in the last few minutes so that we are not left without help, because somebody might either be too inspired to stop and then wonder what next, or too disappointed and just give up if they have been considering it. They're like, I'm not consistent, it's not in my DNA, I don't have the persona, I can't communicate, and then they're wondering, is it too late for me? One other might be fired up and like, it's just a basic, I don't even need a PhD. So this is where we want to make the link. You said we don't learn these skills in school. So do we say to our audience now that Avoda is not another business school?
It's not another business school. No, it's not.
What is it then?
So I mentioned before, but 6 months is the head knowledge. So once again, we're not debunking education for startups. I think it is really critical. So that's the first 6 months. But we also have another 6 months. It's a one-year program. The next 6 months is going out there and selling. Right? You sell it. You sell your product, you sell your services, and we do it together with you. And you come back and you tell us how it went, and we give you advice, and you go out and do it again. If it's a very big client, then we can go with you to give you confidence and credibility. and I want to talk about that word credibility. We're a very big believer that startups are built also on credibility, because it's creditability, right? The word credit comes from, are you credible? And so during
we wind down this conversation, time is fast spent. We started off with your personal journey. We've seen your many travels and experiences as an entrepreneur, as a young man, as a now group CEO living in a foreign country. Entrepreneurship is hard work, like you said. What you call consistency, my personal experience, it is hard work.
it's hard.
We cannot live without talking about work-life balance for entrepreneurs, because from what I've heard, the most successful ones get sucked in. And at Fidelis Leadership Institute, as it should be, we should be able to have everything in moderation. Tell us about work-life balance for entrepreneurs, or is it something you say, let me sacrifice now so that the next generation will be better?
Oof.
Including work-life balance for you, the entrepreneur,
Yeah.
self-care for the entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
everything in between.
You bring this up in a very interesting stage of my life. So for 43 years, I'm 43 years old. For 43 years, I think I used to think, forget work-life balance. I'm going to just go 110%, and I'm going to build something that is going to benefit people. But I got married this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I thought it would never happen, but it did. And now, yeah, I'm forced to think about work-life balance for the first time in seriousness. And you talked about, who should entrepreneurs network with, or something like that. And I said, yeah, investors and donors,
And
customers. But I think very important, I mean, network is maybe not the right word, but your family and your church. If you're a Christian, right? Because
Faith community.
your faith community, because that is where the longevity of your ability to work comes from. You need it. You need that time away to focus on being fed and being loved, and then go out and conquer the world again. I'm starting to realize how important that is. Like they say,
43 years in.
43 years in, I'm a late bloomer on the work-life balance side of things.
Thank you for that vulnerability, but also confirming what we've always known, that it is what you put in, that sustainability. Like if you burn out at 43 just because you've achieved everything, then the next 43 years are in jeopardy, or so to speak. So thank you so much. Anything else you want to say to our entrepreneurs out there? I don't know if you have any questions from the listeners and viewers. I'll ask the administration side to quickly send through.
Yeah.
Please, what else do you have to say to the Ugandan entrepreneurs out there?
I would say that please don't fall in love with your first business idea. I think that is, we talk about creatives, but that is a tendency if you're a creative to go, I love my product. So don't fall in love with your business. Please fall in love with the problem your business is trying to solve.
Please say that again.
Don't fall in love with your business. Fall in love with the problem that your business is trying to solve for people. And if you can do that, then sometimes your product might change, your services might change.
The method of delivery,
the method, the distribution might change, but what is the problem you're trying to solve? Right? And
that sounds very altruistic.
Well, business is, in a sense, altruistic, right? If someone doesn't need it, they're not going to buy it. Right? So
what about wanted?
Wanting is in populations of high disposable income.
Which is not a Ugandan context.
We actually teach this in Avoda. It's a very, very central piece to our teaching.
Please throw more light. I know time is not on the side, but because that is on the fence as well. We are torn as entrepreneurs between going to meeting basic everyday needs, where you know everybody will need product A or service A, or trying to create some niche. Everybody said find something unique, price it, and people will come flooding to you. Whether it's an experience, we've heard of Airbnbs, we've heard of destination. Was it the hospitality business?
Well, I'll throw one statistic at you. So Forbes magazine, it did a massive study on startups that failed. And you know what the top reason was for startups that failed around the world? The top reason was no market need. And that's different from no need. No market need.
What's the difference between market need and no need?
Yeah, so if you are trying to make, if you're, so let's say there are people who need mosquito nets, there are people who need water but can't pay for it. Right? That's the area of altruism, and we need that, of course. But you're not going to get paid for it. Right? So if you're a business, for-profit business, and you're trying to make a revenue, then you need to find things that are not just need, but market need, which is also known as demand. So people need it, and they can and are willing to buy it.
You can't make them want it or need it?
Want is above that. Want is, I don't need it, but I want it, and I can pay for it.
I think this is a conversation starter when we come to Avoda. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, time, as usual, has not been on our side. We've been very honored to have June here. Whatever insights he has shared here, you would have to pay, is it gold, blue, yellow, some...
Avoda blue.
Avoda blue to hear him speak, but from Fidelis Leadership Institute, we brought him here, an hour and counting. He's given us a tidbit, an iceberg, a bird's view of what harnessing entrepreneurship skills would look like, should look like, irrespective of your age, level of education and exposure. He has brought the context here because he has homegrown solutions for Ugandan entrepreneurs. We thank him very much. Would like to request you to follow this conversation beyond the hour or so we've had here. We will put our contact, we'll put our border contacts. Please reach out. please check in, consult, get to do a check on where you are, where you want to go as an entrepreneur, and let's keep in touch as we grow our skills as entrepreneurs. Thank you so much, June.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure
Amanda, for having
talking
me.
to you. You have thrown out everything we've done in school.
I hope not.
We've basically not been learning. I said we're here to learn, but I think I can say we've unlearned. A lot of unlearning has happened, and we thank you so much for being a great audience. Tune in again next Thursday for more conversations that matter. We do have some trainings from Fidelis coming up in the coming month, one of them being competition law. I wish I could get still a second for you to talk about as we get into this competitive global market and region.